It's Ann, and tonight I'm reading Cinderella. Once upon a time, there was a beautiful girl named Ella, but everyone called her Cinderella because while her family slept, ate, and lived in luxury, she spent most of her days by the fireplace hearth covered in cinder ashes. One morning, a messenger came by the house to deliver an invitation that was beautifully engraved in gold. It was an invitation to meet the prince at a formal ball where he will select a wife. It was addressed to all ladies of a certain age who were available to marry, and it was signed, His Royal Highness, the King. Well, you can imagine how her two stepsisters squealed in delight along with her stepmother, who doted on their every wish, despite how cruel they were to everyone, especially Cinderella. Cinderella's mother had died several years before, and her loving father remarried. The new stepmother and two new stepsisters got everything they wanted, but would always leave Cinderella out. She was made to cook, clean, and take care of the house. They were as mean and ugly as Cinderella was kind and beautiful, so they were very jealous. She was hardly allowed to leave the house. As her stepmother and stepsisters began making plans to attend the ball, Cinderella asked if she could go too. Her stepmother told her, perhaps, if she were able to get all of her chores done before that night, she could. However, her stepmother really had no intentions of allowing her to attend. So as she hurried to finish cleaning and assisted her family getting dressed for the night, she realized that she had nothing to wear and would not be going with them. As her family left in their coach, Cinderella fell to the floor weeping. Just then, she heard a knock at the door. When she made her way and opened it, there stood a beautiful figure in dazzling clothing, carrying a wand. She reached out to reassure Cinderella and introduced herself as her fairy godmother. In a flash, she told Cinderella to dry her tears and gather a pumpkin, 4 mice, and a lizard. She was told to bring everything to where the beautiful lady stood. With a quick wave of her magic wand, there suddenly appeared a shimmering coach, 4 uniformed footmen in white tails, and a very tall, elegant coachman. The fairy godmother then said, "And one more thing we will need here is a dress, but not just any dress. The dress must steal the attention and the heart of a prince." One more wave of her magic wand, and there stood Cinderella, as regal as a princess, dressed in a glittering ball gown and wearing dainty glass slippers that sparkled on her tiny feet. Now, you may attend that ball, but I must warn you to be home before midnight, because before the final stroke, all of my magic will wear off and everything will go back to the way it was before. Cinderella promised to be home on time, but once she arrived, she was so distracted. She had never seen such clothing, finery, yummy food, and nice people that wanted to talk with her. The moment she walked in, she could almost hear a hush come over the entire room as everyone turned to watch Cinderella enter. They were all whispering and wondering who the beautiful stranger was. Perhaps a princess from a neighboring kingdom, but no one knew. Then the prince made his way over and asked Cinderella to dance. They continued to dance the entire night away, his gaze hardly leaving her attention. He fell madly in love with her in an instant and would dance with no one else for the entire evening. Cinderella was having so much fun that she did not notice the time until she heard the first stroke of the clock at midnight. She suddenly rushed to say good night and run out, but in her haste, she left one of her glass slippers behind. The prince tried to catch her, but was too slow. He did find the glass slipper and vowed to marry the beautiful girl who had worn it just a few moments ago. Over the next several days, he and his footman went to every door, asking all of the ladies in the household to try on the shoe. It was much too tiny, and he had begun to give up hope of ever finding the owner as he came upon the last house. When he knocked on the door, the stepmother answered, and the prince and his helpers were led into the hall, where the two stepsisters were seated. They each tried to squeeze their huge, ugly feet into the small shoe, but neither could wear it. At that moment, the prince noticed Cinderella in the corner by the fireplace and asked her to come forward and try on the shoe. The stepmother and both stepsisters looked at each other and laughed. They told the prince that she did not need to try the shoe because Cinderella had not attended the ball that night. The prince insisted and said that all the young ladies in the kingdom must try on the shoe. Cinderella approached, took a seat, and tried on the glass slipper. It gently glided easily on her dainty foot. It was a perfect fit. The stepmother and stepsisters gasped in disbelief and horror at what had just happened. The prince took her hand, pulled her close to him, and professed his undying love to Cinderella. All at once, the fairy godmother reappeared before the assembled group, waved her magic wand once again, and Cinderella's dirty, ash-covered dress turned into the most spectacular wedding gown. She and the prince rode away to the palace in his royal coach to be married, and there they lived happily ever after. The end. And good night.